few years ago, I did a little analysis of my local newspaper, Daily Oklahoman, on their coverage 60 days before and after the war in Iraq began. Mainly looked at the editorials written by the paper itself and looked at a few of the syndicated columns. But my conclusion was that in those 120 days, every single one of them was radically pro-war. Of all of them, the most disturbing was one written by a Cal Thomas. Cal Thomas, who this Monday, November 26th, will be appearing at Capella Books. Originally it was going to be like $10 for you to go to this thing, but the guy that he's written his new book, Common Ground, How to Stop the Partisan War That Is Destroying America. There's a Destroying America reoccurring theme. The guy who wrote it with, Bob Beckel, may not be able to attend, so they're waiving the fee and you can go, and they say you don't even have to buy the book, which is pretty darn good deal if you ask me. I'd like for someone to go and do something that I thought I was going to be able to do. I've been wanting to confront Thomas on this for quite a while. I was in Atlanta last month and saw this event was going to be occurring, and since I'm a stupid leftist, I thought that it was October. I read the thing wrong. I was just briefly very excited that I was going to get to go, and discovered I couldn't. I was there for training for a job that involves manual labor, something that Cal Thomas probably doesn't even know what it is, or his buddies at the Heritage Foundation. Save that for another editorial. Okay, so what I want to talk to Thomas about, or actually get someone to do in the Q&A, is this article he wrote on April the 15th, 2003, 5 days before Hitler's birthday, of course, called False Media Prophets. Here it is. Check this out. When the Berlin Wall fell and Eastern Europe escaped the shackles of communism, I wrote that we should not forget the enablers, apologists, and other fellow travelers who helped sustain communism's grip on a sizable portion of humanity for much of the 20th century. I suggested that a cultural war crimes tribunal be convened at which people from academia, the media, government, clergy who were wrong in their assessment of communism would be forced to confront their mistakes. While not wishing to deprive anyone of his or her right to be wrong, it wouldn't hurt for these people to be held accountable. The advice was not taken, but today we are presented with another opportunity in the form of scores of false media prophets who predicted disaster should the U.S. military confront and seek to oust the murderous regime of Saddam Hussein. The purpose of a cultural crimes tribunal would be to remind the public of journalism's many mistakes, as well as the errors of certain politicians and retired generals, and allow it to properly judge their words the next time they feel the urge to prophesy. National Review and Media Research Center have accumulated some of the predictions. In light of the developments, they make for hilarious reading, better than a Chinese fortune cookie or the horoscopes. In no particular order of hilarity or air factor, there was R.W. Apple of the New York Times, who mostly writes about food these days, opinioning on March 30th, just days before the war had begun, with every passing day it is more evident that the Allies made two gross military misjudgments, in concluding that coalition forces could safely bypass Basra and Nasiriyah, and that Shiite Muslims in southern Iraq would rise up against Saddam Hussein. On the same day, Peter Arnett, former contributor to NBC but ousted after his anti-American homily on Iraqi state television, flatly stated the first war plan has failed because of Iraqi resistance. It's important to note NBC's owned by GE, who owns all these companies that have profited off the war in Iraq. Back to this. New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd, who sees no good, hears no good, and speaks no good concerning the administration, also wrote on March 30th, in cranking up their war plan with expurgated intelligence, the Hawks left the ground troops exposed and insufficiently briefed on the Fedayeen. Ideology should not shape facts when lives are at stake. Someone please create a plaque with the last statement and send it to every journalist in the country, beginning with Maureen Dowd. My personal favorite is a comment by columnist and TV host Chris Matthews, who wrote last August 25th in the San Francisco Chronicle, This invasion of Iraq, if it goes off, will join the Bay of Pigs, Vietnam, Desert One, and Somalia in the history of military catastrophe. Barry McCaffrey, a retired U.S. Army general who commanded the 24th Infantry Division 12 years ago during Desert Storm, told the BBC's Newsnight program on March 24th, "We could take, bluntly, a couple to 3,000 casualties. Thankfully, the casualty numbers have been incredibly small." 3,000. There were numerous observations from journalists and commentators about the supposed insufficiency of troops. There were predictions that the Arab street would stage an uprising. There were forecasts Israel would be drawn into the war when Saddam attacked with Scud missiles. All of these printed and voiced prophecies should be saved in an archive. When these false prophets appear again, they can be reminded of the error of their previous ways and at least offered an opportunity to recant and repent. Otherwise, they will return to us in another situation where their expertise will be acknowledged or taken for granted, but their credibility will be lacking. These false media prophets won't fess up. Then let the tribunal begin at an academic institution or in a major television studio. I'll bet it would claim higher ratings for Fox News Channel. This is not me making. This is what he wrote. Which is clobbering its competition precisely because the public recognizes false prophets when it sees them. Okay, so the question I want asked is, since this book, Cal Thomas and this Bob Beckel guy, I've never heard of, probably one of those I'm not a leftist, but I play one on TV types, is, do you think that a good way to advance in bridging the partisan divide would be to address this crap you wrote? You said how ludicrous it was that 3,000 people could die. Well, I guess it was ludicrous because it's about 4,000. I would very much appreciate if someone would go to this event, ask him about this column. You can look it up, go to Google, type in cultural war crimes, tribunal, Cal Thomas, read it. Go to this thing and ask him that question. Ask him why he doesn't say anything about that in his book. I'm being generous in calling it a book. This dummy's getting big money to do these book tours, paid all these advances from these stupid publishers. Just ask him why he doesn't do it. And when he, don't be long-winded like I am right now, because he will cut you off. He probably tase you, all that stuff. Just go and confront this